The referee's hand slammed against the canvas for the third time, and the crowd erupted into chaos. Muhammad Ali, the greatest boxer who ever lived, had just been pinned by a 400-pound Japanese wrestler named Antonio Inoki in what was supposed to be a simple exhibition match. But what the cameras captured in those final moments would haunt Ali for the rest of his career and change the course of combat sports forever. If this already has you on the edge of your seat, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And don't forget to smash that hype button, because what you're about to witness will blow your mind. The arena lights cast harsh shadows across Ali's sweat-drenched face as he stared up at the ceiling of the Budokan Hall in Tokyo, June 26, 1976. The date that would forever divide his legacy into before and after. Steam rose from the canvas where drops of blood, his blood, had begun to pool. The crowd's roar felt distant, muffled, as if he were drowning. His left leg throbbed with a pain so intense it made his vision blur. Inoki's kicks had found their mark again and again, each one a sledgehammer against bone and muscle. The Japanese wrestler stood over him, arms raised in victory, his massive frame blocking out the arena lights. But something was wrong with this picture. Ali's eyes weren't those of a defeated man. They burned with a fury that made even Inoki take a step back. Because what had just happened wasn't a fight, it was a betrayal that went deeper than anyone in that arena could possibly imagine. 3 months earlier, Ali had been approached with what seemed like the opportunity of a lifetime. An exhibition match in Japan, they said. Easy money. A chance to showcase boxing versus wrestling in a controlled, choreographed spectacle. The promoters painted pictures of a theatrical display that would entertain millions while padding Ali's bank account with more money than he'd made in his last 3 title defenses combined. What they didn't tell him was that Inoki had other plans. The contract negotiations had taken place in a smoke-filled room in Manhattan, where men in expensive suits spoke in whispers about television rights and international markets. Ali's manager, Herbert Mohammed, had been skeptical from the beginning. "This isn't boxing, Mohammed," he'd warned. "This is something else entirely." But Ali, ever the showman, ever the risk-taker, had waved off the concerns with his trademark confidence. "I'll dance around this wrestler for 15 rounds and make it look good," he'd laughed. How hard could it be? The training camp had been unlike anything Ali had ever experienced. Instead of preparing for a boxer's footwork and combinations, he found himself learning to defend against takedowns and grappling techniques. His sparring partners were replaced with wrestlers who taught him the basics of ground defense. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared him for what Inoki had planned. The first sign that something was terribly wrong came during the pre-fight meeting. Inoki sat across from Ali in a hotel conference room, his interpreter whispering frantically in his ear. The wrestler's eyes never left Ali's face as the rules were discussed. No kicks to the head, no takedowns unless Ali was standing, limited grappling on the ground. But Inoki's smile suggested he had found loopholes that no one else had considered. "You understand the rules?" the promoter asked Ali. "I understand," Ali replied, but his voice carried a note of uncertainty that his closest friends had rarely heard. As they walked to their respective locker rooms, Inoki's interpreter approached Ali's entourage. "Inoki-san wants you to know," the man said quietly, "that he respects you as a fighter, but tonight he fights for the honor of Japan." The words sent a chill through the room that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. The entrance to the Budokan Hall was unlike anything Ali had experienced. The crowd wasn't just loud, it was electric with an energy that felt almost dangerous. Japanese fans held signs written in English, "Ali is God and the greatest in the world." But mixed among them were others that read, "Inoki will destroy and wrestling is superior." The atmosphere crackled with genuine uncertainty about what was about to unfold. In his dressing room, Ali went through his usual pre-fight ritual, but his hands shook slightly as he wrapped them. His trainer, Angelo Dundee, noticed immediately. "You okay, champ?" "Something doesn't feel right about this, Angelo," Ali admitted. "That wrestler, there's something in his eyes." Dundee had been in boxing for 30 years and had learned to trust his fighter's instincts. "We can still walk away from this." But Ali was already standing, already moving toward the door. "The whole world is watching. I can't back down now." The walk to the ring felt eternal. Each step echoed through the arena as 14,000 people rose to their feet. The cameras followed his every movement, broadcasting live to an estimated 54 countries. This wasn't just a fight, it was a global spectacle that would either cement Ali's legend or destroy it completely. Inoki entered from the opposite side of the arena, and the contrast was striking. Where Ali moved with the fluid grace of a dancer, Inoki walked with the deliberate, predatory gait of a hunter. His 6'3" frame carried 400 pounds of muscle and fat, making him look less like an athlete and more like a force of nature. The crowd's cheers for him were different, deeper, more primal, filled with the expectation of violence. As they met in the center of the ring for the final instructions, Ali tried his usual psychological warfare. "You're in trouble now, big man," he whispered. "I'm gonna dance around you all night and make you look foolish." Inoki's response came through his interpreter, but his eyes never left Ali's. "He says you talk too much. Tonight, you will learn to be quiet." The referee called them to their corners, and in that moment Ali realized that everything he thought he knew about this fight was wrong. "You're probably thinking this can't get any crazier, right? Drop a shocked in the comments if you're as stunned as I am by what's coming next." The opening bell rang, and immediately, Inoki dropped to the canvas. Ali stared in disbelief as the massive wrestler lay on his back, legs extended, waiting. This wasn't wrestling as Ali understood it. This wasn't even fighting. Inoki had found the ultimate loophole in their carefully negotiated rules. If he stayed on the ground, Ali couldn't engage without risking a takedown, but Inoki could kick at Ali's legs whenever the boxer came close. For the first 3 rounds, Ali danced around the ring while Inoki scooted across the canvas like a 400-pound crab, lashing out with kicks whenever Ali approached. The crowd grew restless, then angry. This wasn't the spectacle they'd been promised. Boos began to rain down from the upper sections, growing louder with each passing minute. "Get up and fight!" Ali shouted at Inoki, but the wrestler simply smiled and continued his bizarre ground game. By the 5th round, Ali's frustration had turned to genuine concern. Every time he tried to engage, Inoki's legs would whip out like sledgehammers, targeting Ali's shins and calves. The kicks were taking their toll. Ali's left leg was already beginning to swell, and he could feel something wrong deep in the muscle. Angelo Dundee screamed instructions from the corner, but what could he say? How do you fight an opponent who refuses to stand up? How do you box a man who's turned the ring into his personal wrestling mat? The turning point came in the 8th round. Ali, desperate to create some action for the increasingly hostile crowd, moved in closer than he had before. Inoki's right leg shot out like a piston, catching Ali just above the ankle with a sickening crack that could be heard in the first 3 rows. Ali stumbled backward, his face contorting in pain, but he refused to go down. "I'm okay," he told the referee, but the lie was obvious to everyone watching. His left leg was no longer supporting his weight properly, and his famous shuffle had been reduced to an awkward limp. The crowd sensed blood in the water. The boos turned to cheers as they realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Muhammad Ali, the man who had never been truly hurt in a boxing ring, was being systematically destroyed by an opponent who wouldn't even stand up to fight him. Inoki seemed to sense the shift in momentum. His kicks became more frequent, more targeted. He was no longer just defending, he was hunting. Each strike was calculated to cause maximum damage to Ali's mobility. The wrestler had turned the boxing ring into a trap, and Ali was caught in the center of it. By the 10th round, Ali's corner was seriously considering stopping the fight. His left leg was visibly swollen, and he was favoring it so heavily that his movement had become predictable. But Ali refused to quit. "I came here to fight 15 rounds, he gasped between rounds. "I'm gonna fight 15 rounds. The final 5 rounds were a masterclass in controlled violence. Inoki had found his rhythm, timing Ali's approaches perfectly, and landing devastating kicks that echoed through the arena like gunshots. Ali, meanwhile, was fighting on pure heart and stubbornness, refusing to give the Japanese crowd the satisfaction of seeing him quit. But something else was happening that the cameras were capturing in brutal detail. With each passing round, Ali's face was changing. The confident smile was gone, replaced by a grimace of pain and determination. His eyes, usually bright with mischief and intelligence, had taken on the hollow look of a man who realized he had made a terrible mistake. The 13th round brought the moment that would haunt Ali forever. Inoki's kick caught him flush on the side of the knee, and for the first time in the fight, Ali went down. Not from a punch, not from a takedown, but from a kick delivered by a man lying on his back. The irony was lost on no one. Ali got back to his feet, but something fundamental had changed. The aura of invincibility that had surrounded him for over a decade was gone, shattered by a 400-pound wrestler who had refused to play by boxing's rules. The final 2 rounds were a formality. Ali survived, but barely. When the final bell rang, both men were declared winners in a draw that satisfied no one. But as Ali limped back to his corner, supported by his trainers, everyone in the arena knew the truth. Something irreplaceable had been lost that night. The aftermath was immediate and devastating. Ali's left leg was so badly damaged that he required surgery to repair torn blood vessels. The injury would plague him for the rest of his career, affecting his mobility in ways that would become apparent in his later fights. But the physical damage was nothing compared to what the fight had done to his reputation. The media coverage was brutal. "Ali humiliated by fat wrestler," read one headline. "The greatest reduced to a joke," proclaimed another. For the first time in his career, Ali found himself on the defensive, trying to explain how he had allowed himself to be trapped in such a bizarre spectacle. But perhaps the most damaging aspect of the fight was what it revealed about Ali's vulnerability. For years he had seemed untouchable, a man who could talk his way out of any situation and dance his way around any opponent. The Inoki fight showed the world that even Muhammad Ali could be outmaneuvered, outsmarted, and ultimately defeated by someone who understood the game better than he did. In the weeks following the fight, Ali would claim that he had been betrayed by the promoters, that the rules had been changed at the last minute, that Inoki had refused to follow the agreed-upon script. All of these claims had elements of truth, but they couldn't change what the cameras had captured, the moment when the greatest boxer of all time had been reduced to a limping, frustrated figure, unable to impose his will on an opponent who had simply refused to play by his rules. The fight would go down in history as one of the most bizarre spectacles in combat sports, a surreal collision between 2 different worlds that satisfied no one and damaged everyone involved. But for those who witnessed it, either in person or through the unblinking eye of the television cameras, it served as a stark reminder that even legends are human, even gods can bleed, and even the greatest can fall when they venture too far outside their domain. Years later, when asked about the fight, Ali would grow quiet, his usual verbal pyrotechnics replaced by a thoughtful silence. "That night in Japan," he would finally say, "taught me that there are some fights you can't win by being brave. Sometimes, the smartest thing to do is walk away." It was a lesson that came too late to save him from one of the most damaging nights of his legendary career. This story reminds us that even our greatest heroes are human, that courage sometimes means knowing when not to fight, and that the most important battles are often the ones we choose not to enter. What do you think? Was Ali brave for taking this fight, or foolish for not walking away when he sensed something was wrong? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story moved you, consider sharing it with someone who needs to hear that even legends face moments of doubt and defeat.